tuned in to the Andrew Lawton Show.
I want to talk to one of the candidates who's not gotten a lot of coverage at all. And in our invitations, we had said, once you submit your paperwork to be a candidate, we'll have you on the show to talk about why it is that you're running. And it's my privilege to have on Joseph Bourgault, who is an entrepreneur from Saskatchewan, who joins us now. Joseph Bourgault, good to talk to you, sir. Thanks very much for coming on today.
You're welcome, Andrew. Good to meet you.
Likewise. So you've not held elected office, as I understand, correct?
No.
Why are you running to be the next prime minister?
Because the country is headed in the wrong direction and has been for a long time now. And I feel that I have the strength of moral character, the vision, the competency skills, the executive leadership skills to be able to get the country back on the right track again.
We often hear this idea, and I ask all the candidates this, that we have a big tent Conservative Party of Canada in this country that has in it the social conservatives, the libertarians, the populists, the foreign policy conservatives, the red Tories, the blue Tories. Where do you put yourself in that so-called tent? What's your brand of conservatism that you'd bring as leader of the CPC?
Well, I describe myself as a honest, truth-seeking, principled, fiscal and social conservative. That's how I would describe myself. Wherever the truth goes, that's where I go. So I think, and truth is above left, right, center. Planes fly with a left wing and a right wing and a fuselage. And so that's how truth is. The principles of flight matter. And, for a plane to try to just fly with a right wing, I think it's going to be in a lot of trouble.
So one of the things I noticed, and we've been talking about the convoy effect in Canadian politics here. You've been very clear. I think you were in Ottawa for the convoy, for part of it, if memory serves, and you've said, no to vaccine mandates, no to digital ID. You're certainly speaking to a lot of these issues that have come up. Why is it you feel that they are not being adequately represented by other candidates or in Canadian politics in general?
Well, I've always learned, don't look at what a person says. Look at what they do. When we were in Ottawa, we were trying to get a hold of. We had prepared a PowerPoint presentation for the government, for the Liberal, NDP, or Conservative politicians. Anybody that would want to see what the kind of the demands of the truckers were, and it all had to do around ending the mandates and the logic why, the science why. We were in touch with attempted to contact all those politicians, including Pierre Poilievre, and none of them returned our calls or got back to us. So, actions speak louder than words. You can talk about freedom and just keep repeating the word freedom, but if you don't know how you're going to give Canadians their freedom back, and if you've done nothing in your past to stand up for Canadians' freedoms, I just have a little bit of trouble with understanding how Canadians would support people who talk the talk but don't walk the talk, and I walk the talk.
Now, you've been a member of the Conservative Party of Canada for quite some time. About how long?
46 years.
So even the PC party originally?
Yes.
And when the split happened, were you a Reform Alliance supporter?
Yeah, I wanted to see them come back together around principles. I think unless we govern our country in an honest, truthful, and principled way, I cannot see how we will ever get our country back on the right track. And what I see with the current crop of politicians, and I've seen that for years, and I'm learning even that about Stephen Harper. The question is, are you loyal? Are you there to serve the Canadian people? Or are you there to serve some foreign entities, corporations? So, I would be there to serve the Canadian people, not the World Economic Forum or the UN or the World Health Organization. As a matter of fact, I feel all of those organizations are corrupt right now.
Now, when you talk about serving, are you talking about your belief that Canadian politicians are, ideologically on side with these organizations, or do you think they're actually beholden to them, that these institutions, these groups are pulling the strings in a direct way on Canadian leaders?
Well, it's like when it comes to some of the members of the Conservative Party, I don't have personally any hard factual evidence that they're affiliated with the World Economic Forum. But I would ask them in a debate, I would ask them, you can't serve two masters. Are you going to be there to 100% committed to serving the Canadian people? Or are you going to be serving the World Economic Forum, the UN agenda, the World Economic Forum? Because the country has really been run over the last 2 years, what we've dealt with COVID. The World Health Organization was calling a lot of the shots in terms of, pardon the pun, the shots, in terms of all these mandates that we dealt with. And if you'll ask me some questions about that, I'll answer. We would have never, under my leadership, we would have never shut the country down. That was outrageous. There was, I don't even know the words to describe what went on. There has to be a criminal investigation, is to put it simply. I believe there was criminality behind that.
Now, I'm not one of these people that cares about other people's vaccination status, so you can disclose or not disclose, that's up to you. But just as a matter of practicality, right now, unvaccinated people cannot board planes. And I know Maxime Bernier has said, the leader of the PPC, that he can't run a national campaign right now as a national party leader because he's not able to travel the country in the most convenient way. Is that an issue that you think you'll have to contend with?
Well, it absolutely is. Thank God I love to drive, but I think it's an unfair aspect of it, and I would not take an experimental, just like I never put guns to my head with bullets in them. I'm not going to take an experimental injection that is known to kill and severely injure people. So why would I do something like that? I'm not going to risk my health or my life to travel the country. I'd rather drive all night than do that.
So your belief is that the COVID vaccine is, basically your belief is that people are taking their life into their own hands if they take it.
Well, I just follow the science. I'm pro-truth and science, so I've done my research on it. And just off the VAERS system, the VAERS and European system, over 65,000 people died within 2 weeks of taking the injection, and millions have been injured. So these aren't out of my lips. These are the statistical facts.
Most of the people that I've spoken to, and I don't want to generalize too much here, but they've said their position is against mandates, that it should be an individual choice, whether someone gets vaccinated or not, whether someone does any number of things that are of medical suggestion or recommendation or advice to them. But you're taking a view that the vaccine itself is a problem.
Well, I respect, like, the view I take is I'm all about upholding the rule of law. And I believe that the rights to make medical decisions and all rights are rights given to us by our Creator and not by governments. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms begins, whereas Canada was founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And all those rights that are in there, those rights were given to us by our Creator, not by government. And so government has no right to take those rights away from us. If people believe that they want to if they believe the government, that they want to take on that experimental gene therapy, I go for it. I 100% respect every Canadian's freedom of choice, but don't try to force me to make medical decisions against my free will. I consider that violations of the Criminal Code of Canada, and under 3 sections, extortion, assault, and consent. And I think that that's what's happened in this country, forcing people to make decisions, medical decisions, experimental medical decisions against their free will. I believe that's criminal.
On economics, you've also taken a view that government should not have a carbon tax. I mean, that was one that you came right out with here. But I want to also give you an opportunity to explain, just from a Western perspective, because I note that you are, with the exception of Mark Dalton in BC, the only candidate, I think, from Western Canada here. How are you going to speak up for this part of the country?
Well, like if I were premier, unlike the politicians we have today, I would be governing for all Canadians based on a set of principles, recognizing God as our creator, the relentless pursuit of truth on every issue that we deal with, gathering the facts to discern the truth of the matter. And so as it relates to Western Canada, if there are in fact injustices taking place, and I believe that they are, what the energy sector primarily based in Western Canada has been under attack ever since Trudeau took office. And so there are some bills there, C69, C48. To me, we would take a close look at them, and anything that is any legislation that is out of alignment with our core values and principles, and out of alignment with the truth, and out of alignment. Core value and principle is justice and fairness. And I think every region of the country has to be treated justly and fairly, because otherwise we're going to have what we have now, Western alienation. That was created by the Trudeau Liberal NDP coalition. And so to me, wherever there's injustice and unfairness, and wherever we're out of alignment with the truth in science, or we would get rid of any of that type of legislation. And I am 100% against the carbon tax, because as a businessman that has been working diligently for 40 plus years to keep jobs in Canada, all the carbon tax is doing is it's making Canadian manufacturers, Canadian companies, Canadian oil and gas sector uncompetitive with the rest of the world. And so what's happening, it's driving the jobs over to China. China produces over 60% of its electricity with coal-fired power plants that are not nearly as regulated to prevent pollution of the of the atmosphere. And so what we're doing is actually increasing pollution in China with the carbon taxes that we have here in Canada. It doesn't add up. It makes no rational or logical sense, but I wouldn't expect anything different from Justin Trudeau.
You mentioned Western alienation. The growing Western independence movement, I think, is something that Justin Trudeau, to his great detriment and to Canada's detriment, has not been paying attention to. You've got the Maverick Party federally, which didn't really achieve all that much in the last election, but I think provincially, through the Western or through the Wild Rose Independence Party, you see a little bit more of this sentiment growing here. What's your view of, the Western independence movement, and how do you, assuming you do want to keep the Canadian Federation together, how do you tell Albertans that, no, you can still trust in Canada as a country?
Well, obviously, the only way you build trust with people is by telling the truth. And we've had the exact opposite out of Justin Trudeau's lips. How do you tell he's lying? When his lips are moving. There's been so much. And so that's breaking the trust of Canadians, period. Whenever you have politicians that are not telling the truth and not there to serve the Canadian people, of course you're going to have Western alienation. And so I feel that it's on us, those of us who are rational, logic, honest people with integrity, with a moral compass, who work off of deductive reasoning and logic. It's up to us to get our message out to Canadians and to convince the majority of Canadians to elect honest, truth-seeking, moral, principled politicians, and that's what I'm standing for. And I think that that's what's required to unify the country. No one region of the country should be treated more fairly. But it's beyond that, Andrew, if I may. I believe that Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberal coalition, if any of the information we're gathering is true at all, they're there serving the World Economic Forum, the UN agenda, and the World Health Organization. And so right there, you have a major conflict of interest. These politicians are not there to serve the Canadian people. And unlike them, I would be there to serve the Canadian people. No foreign entity. I'm not a member of the World Economic Forum. I have zero interest in being a member of them. They would never control me, nor would the UN or the World Health Organization. We would be making decisions in Canada with our own doctors and scientists and our own professionals, doing what's right for the Canadian people, not what's right for some bunch of globalists or, or foreign organizations that are unelected, that are not there to serve the Canadian people.
On housekeeping, the Conservative Party of Canada has 6 official candidates that it's approved to run in the race, and candidates have to put forward, I think, $300,000 plus hundreds of signatures from members. I understand you've submitted your initial application, but where are you in the leadership process as a prospective candidate?
Well, the application went in last week, and so I had no trouble, going through the application. There's nothing in there that would disqualify me. The signatures were about 65% of the way, 60 to 65% of the way on the signatures. So I think there's a good chance we're going to get there on the signatures. If there's a bit of a challenge, it's on the fundraising. We may be about 25 to 25% of the way. So to anybody that likes what I'm, the message that I'm speaking, I would really appreciate the donations, because I'd love to stay in the race. I'd love to be on the, I'm in it to win it, for one thing, but to get past the April 29th, Canadians that are hearing my message are going to have to open their wallets and donate to my campaign if they want to see me stay on in the campaign past April 29th.
Joseph Bourgault, Conservative leadership candidate from Saskatchewan. Thanks very much for coming on today, sir.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me. I appreciate it very much.
No, that we should do Andre, actually. I should do an entire French version of the show. Thanks very much, sir, for coming on. Good to speak to you.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.